Episode 14 with Mikko Barranda of Acceler8.
You're listening to Kendrick Loves to Brand, the branding podcast featuring stories and lessons from entrepreneurs and brand builders so you can get inspiration, insights, strategies, and tactics as you create your own game-changing brand. Welcome to the show, Mikko. Thank you for agreeing to guest. Mikko is actually a good friend of mine. We've known each other for about 7 years now.
That's right.
Mikko is actually the one who found us our very first location for Early Bird. But before that, before we get into that, I'd like to welcome Mikko to the show and give Mikko the floor to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks again, Ken, for the opportunity to be in your podcast. And you're one of the entrepreneurs I think I really admire. I mean, you've been doing, you wear a lot of hats, and I'm surprised that now you're doing this podcast as opposed to doing your branding, the restaurants that you've opened, and yeah, congratulations to all your achievements so far. I guess just a background on me. So my name is Mikko Barranda. I one of the co-founders of a shared workspace called Acceler8, which we started about 4 years ago in 2015. So we're I'd say that one of the pioneers or the first movers in the Philippines when it comes to shared spaces. At the same time, I am very passionate about real estate. So I'm with a company called Lichu Property Consultants. So we do real estate consultancy. So as you've mentioned before, basically we help tenants look for space, whether it be through leasing, finding them restaurant space, office space, industrial space, or even disposal of properties or acquiring of properties. So anything that real estate related, we're involved. So I believe that at least both companies are interrelated in a lot of ways, and it overlaps, which is actually a very good thing, as you'd know. So you'd be able to maximize and do a lot of things that you're really passionate about.
So how did you get into real estate? I'm just curious. So was this something you've been passionate about since you were in college or since you were young?
I don't know what I wanted to do when I was in school, to be honest. And I think that helped a lot, not knowing what you want to do. So the goal, at least for myself at back then when I was in Ateneo, was just getting an Ateneo diploma. So whether that be taking the easiest courses or taking the easier subjects, which a lot of the batchmates I had at the time were ambitious enough to take very difficult classes and then ended up delaying a bit from graduating on time. But then I'm happy that at least I took interdisciplinary study. So it was a course where we had very practical, subjects which we can use in after we graduate from work. So that was communication psychology. Then after I graduated from Ateneo, I ended up working for corporate. My very first job was with SM. So that was a very good experience for those that have yet to be part of the SM portfolio. I think it's a very nice training ground for you to start off with. So it gave me a glimpse of what's available on a real estate perspective. That was from a developer's point of view. So given that you're in a developer's point of view, the products that you have, you should push to the market. And with that, I felt that it would be in a better position to be in a more neutral ground, wherein as being like a consultant or at least a real estate advisor, you'd be able to really give advice and unbiased advice of which development you feel you can push to the market, or which clients or consumers really need. And that led me to the brokerage business.
So you from there you went to Jones. Not yet.
Correct. So from there, for spending a good number of years in SM, I landed my feet in a brokerage company called Jones Lang LaSalle, a multinational brokerage firm that's known globally. So it was a nice, again, from being in a local company to now being in a foreign multinational firm, of how things are run, are operated. Culture very different from what I was used to being in SM. And I think the confluence of having both local and foreign experience, and both in the real estate sector, helped a lot also in, I think, in my growth as a person, and really in my career in the real estate industry.
So this is, I think, a point in time where we actually met, no? 2012.
That's right.
This was the time that Ellen and I, came up with the idea of Early Bird. We had our partners with us, and we were really having a hard time, I think, finding the right space at that time. I think compared to now, there's a lot more spaces available. Compared
A lot
to
more
that time,
expensive spaces.
more expensive spaces. At that time, parang like, I think our goal was just to find like a nice spot in Fort, kahit maliit lang. Like, we just wanted to get our feet wet, and it was just a stroll. Like, see, Ellen used to go around Fort pa on her own just to look at like what's available, until I think one of her friends referred you to us. And then, doon na nag-start na we were able to find that right location that I think was pretty auspicious din for us in getting that spot. That's really how we were able to establish Early Bird. So from Jones, how long did you stay in Jones before you move on to starting Acceler8 and to Lead You now?
I was with the company for about 4 years. Then after being with Jones Lang LaSalle for 4 years, my mentor, which is David Lichu, decided to start his own company called Lichu Property Consultants. And at that point in time, so he decided to leave the firm, and I wanted to also start, at least explore entrepreneurship similar to how you did it with most of your ventures. And that gave me the opportunity, at least when I left Jones Lang, I had a few months to reassess at least what I wanted to do. Definitely, I was going to pursue work with David, but I had about 6-8 months to rethink how I wanted to move forward. So that time was an opportunity to, see what available opportunities are there in the market, and especially those that are close to real estate. And we saw that shared spaces was very nascent at that time. There are some players, but very few of them were in Manila, and there was a lot of exposure or educational building on how it will benefit entrepreneurs as well.
I remember the earlier, I think, years nung virtual offices. It's very different from what we have now, di ba? I remember at that time when I started Antidote 2008, I was looking for like a virtual office in Makati, just for like during the time when we were servicing clients pa. Sometimes I have a meeting early morning, then the next meeting is like late afternoon pa. So in between, like, I didn't know where to go. I didn't have an office yet, so I was looking at different offices. But it's like a far cry from like the nice spaces that you guys have now. It's like a really old looking office, like a closet basically.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point that you brought up, because being in the consultancy business, we were used to long-term clients and a different caliber of at least tenants that were very mature in the stage of their business, that they could commit to offices for a long term. So traditional offices, as you know, here in the Philippines, will lease anywhere from about 3 to 5 years and lock you up for that long of a period. But again, that model has worked and has worked for the longest time, but it takes a company in a certain maturity stage for them to, number one, lock up their premises for that long. Second is invest significant capital to build an office.
Correct.
What we saw, at least what we saw at that time, is that by servicing a lot of these traditional tenants, there were a lot of companies that were starting their business that could not afford their own office off the bat. Right. So that's where the opportunity to look at a model where we can be flexible enough to lease them on a shorter period of time, similar to you when you were looking for office space, and you wanted to maybe house a few people at first and then scale that up to a certain number. At least these flexi spaces, which were very few of them at 2015, 2014, we're able to address that need. And given that the economy has been growing since, I mean, we've been in a 15-year boom as far as I can recall. There has been number of people that have now gone on their own and started their businesses, and that was a catchment that we found, that a demographic or profile that we can service.
For example, in Accelerate, what's the shortest commitment in terms of time that tenants can come in and use the space?
1 hour.
1 hour. That's very different because at that time, I think the minimum for the office space I took in Makati was like 6 months.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really looking forward to really go to that office because the environment is not, I guess it's not inspiring, it's not creative. It's just really just to have I think I remember, I didn't even use the address. It's just really to have a place to go and like spend a few hours a day if I needed to be in Makati for the whole day. Parang ganun. But it's definitely, like you said, it's not flexible. And even the 6 months, I think I barely even used the 6 months that I got there. So there's definitely a big need for spaces like this. So at that time when you guys came up with this idea, you were intentional in staying in real estate. You weren't considering, like, during the 6 to 8 months that you said you weren't looking at other opportunities or.
Yeah, I had for the past few career jobs or experiences I had, I knew that real estate was something that I want to continue, and I wanted to be able to understand all different facets of real estate, not just office, but be able to get a grasp of a more holistic, at least, understanding of the industry itself. And the only way to do that is to expose myself, maybe in number one, starting my own company that will, if you look at the shared spaces, in the end of the day, it's still a real estate play. Fundamentally, it's space. You take space, you cut space up, and then you rent it back. So that was at least the intentions from the very beginning were still interrelated to real estate.
So how do you see the market now? Like, since 4 years ago when you guys started, there's been more and more players coming in to this category. How would you describe the competition now?
I'd say that, number one, I think there's a lot of misconceptions when you talk about co-working spaces, and there's a lot of also education and education that comes with how it will benefit certain entrepreneurs or tenants that rent space from there. So a lot of co-working spaces usually use the word community and collaboration very sparingly, I'd say. So people will market themselves as having a good community or having a place where people can collaborate, and it's a word that I feel we used to use it often, but we realize ourselves that you can't just put 10 people in a room and expect them to collaborate, right? There's so much effort, time, and really dedication that comes with building that sort of culture. So for us, as we see more and more space open up, we believe that each of these spaces have their own cultures, have their own sets of attract certain people into their space. And I think it's good for consumers to have these variety of options, but they need to stay true to their core, which is fundamentally, it still needs to be a space that you can be productive, and that you can work and that you can get things done. Because as much as you give free food or overflowing coffee, but if the space is too cold, or maybe it's not well lit, or it doesn't have the bandwidth that can support your business, and it doesn't make sense to open a shared space. So for us, like, we wanted to make sure that we're fundamentally, the core of the business is sound, and then secondary, how do we build culture that the culture, at least the Acceler8 culture, and we're not trying to be anyone else, but that type of culture that we.
So how would you describe the type of clients you get in Acceler8? And how is it different from how you see other space, like the tenants of other spaces?
I think there's quite a variety of different clients depending on each center. So the funny thing is, the people in Rockwell and people in, let's say, Salcedo companies will be very different. In the Rockwell market, we see a lot of expatriates that live in the area, and they really just want to be as close as possible to where they live to be able to have a balanced life. A lot of these foreigners also value balanced, to balance
So
work-life
are they the
balance. Right?
type that they used to work from home, but probably can't stay productive at home?
Yes, yes. Some of them will work from home. Others will probably be working in. And the fact that Rockwell is a very good place for residential, but in terms of commercial, there's really very few offices that are available. So that was an opportunity that we saw. The fact that there are not many offices in Rockwell. It's a very close community. That it might attract the right clientele. But again, the demographic, I think a lot of our clients are in a certain stage where they can afford to rent office space, whether it be short term. Because there's still a lot of, let's say, freelancers that will find it much cheaper to just work out of a coffee shop. And I think that's why that model works. You have to be able to target a certain companies with certain growth in their business that that expenses like office is something that they can afford at that point in time, right? And what we found out is a lot of at least our clients are both enterprise. They have enterprise and corporate, that are from different kinds of industry, whether it be real estate, advertising, media. Some are even in the logistics and IT. So just a million of different companies.
What do you think has been the secret to success of Acceler8 so far?
Well, I wouldn't say that we are at a stage that we can say that we're successful at. It's a word that it's very very self-serving for us to also say that. But I think as much as I think the recipe really is the people that we have in the team. It's something very cliche that companies will always look at the people, but it is really I think the success that we have is because of those people that stuck with us. So, like our employees that were started with us in 2015 are still with us until today, and they buy into the vision that the company has. They've been on the ground. They've been whatever culture we've formed is because of the team that we have put together for us. Second is we have actually also been able to scale our business a bit more outside the Philippines. So
through your partnership with
through partnerships and with so very recently a company called Union Space. We consolidated with a company called Union Space, and that gave us the opportunity to open branches in Southeast Asia, which is the growing market as of now. So we have a few branches in Indonesia, in Malaysia, and Thailand. And what we do is we try to find ways to do business in the region as opposed to just doing business in the Philippines.
So actually, I think one of the marks of great entrepreneurs is having the humility to never claim to be successful. But I think in your case, recently Acceler8 won an award as the best co-working space.
Rigged.
Can you tell us more about that award? And,
sure. So we so just a few weeks ago we were a couple of months ago we were nominated by a body called Lamudi for their Outlook Awards, and this is the first time that they have categories such as co-working spaces and co-living spaces. So they nominated Acceler8 and a few other companies that are also very, very reputable. They had a survey where they had, I think, a sample of about 10,000 people fill up and to vote on who they feel would be good to be recognized as the one of the best co-working spaces in the country. So we were grateful enough and very humbled to be able to be chosen as the best co-working space in 2019. I don't know about 2020, but that's I think that's really a testament that we know we're in the right direction. And it's very nice to be able to really give that to the team, and to know that their
So
their hard work is
the
paid off.
nomination was from Lamudi, and then they had the 10,000 people vote. The 10,000 people, they had to have been like exposed to co-working spaces, or
I think there was a few categories, and then they had 10,000 people maybe in their database, or maybe a sample from generally they just put it online for people to vote on. So yeah, so that's
so
what
so
I think
basically,
happened.
you guys can claim to be the people's choice.
Hanggang December 31.
Hanggang-
On January 1, di na.
until then, until the next awarding.
Medyo late na rin na-review kay October.
uh, in your line of work, like obviously you came from corporate, and I think you have one of the I would say rare or unique setups in a sense that you get to be full time in both your venture in Acceler8, and also you're still very much full time with Lee Chu, diba?
Yes.
Which is I think very rare, kasi most people who are in corporate who want to start something are the more often than not they have to leave their jobs, diba? Their day jobs. In your case, you're being able to keep both sort of paths. How did that come about, or how did that set up? How did you arrive at that setup?
Yeah, I guess that's an interesting. And I was actually telling a friend just a few weeks back about volunteering for non-profit, non-government organizations. So during the time I was with JLL, I had to expand my network and be able to meet people, right? And because we're in the business of sales, and I knew that if I just attend one event from another, it might not be as effective as being involved in organizations where you can really serve and be able to see these people more frequently. So I know I think when I was with that company, I was involved with about 4 or 5 different organizations, and it was a lot of work because I was volunteering a lot of time to put together events. There's a lot of politics also
Yeah,
that comes
of
with it
course,
for
yeah.
volunteer organizations, and what that ended up happening was that I didn't know I was doing it really based on getting to know more people and maybe building a brand such as what you've been doing for your career. And what that helped me with is once I started to venture into business, I had to cut down on the time that I spent with voluntary organizations. But um, and what happened was that because I was giving so much time in these voluntary organizations, the moment that I let go of them, I released a lot of time to do other things. So it trained me in such a ways to be able to do a lot of things and to have that bandwidth without me expecting that from the very beginning. So now that I only now serve maybe 1 or 2 organizations that are also related to what I do.
What organizations are these?
So I chair the Urban Land Institute Young Leaders Group. So it's a real estate organization that is about sustainability and best practices. Then I also chair FinTech Philippines organization as the chair for property technology. So those are all real estate related. But again, it trained me to be able to do a milieu of different things, and to do it with if you could do that on a volunteer organization, meaning that you're not getting paid there,
Yeah,
or you're actually spending time. Free will, right?
Yeah.
That gave me that experience that I could actually do a few other things simultaneously.
So how did that talk go? Like when you told David Leju that you're planning to start your own, was it something like did you have in mind already that you're gonna start Acceler8 but also try to keep your position in Leju?
When I start, so when Acceler8 came first, then I still wanted to do real estate. He's very, very supportive. I would say. Of course, we had to tell him, this is the situation that I have. But again, as mentioned, it's the way I think to be able to do a lot of things is as long as those things are interrelated to each other. So I wouldn't go in a business where it's too far from what I do on a day to day, because it will just it's gonna be very difficult mentally to compartmentalize a different industry on its own. And now with let's say being in a shared space, you see the trends from a startup point of view. You see what's happening in the fintech space. Then on a corporate hat, you see on a multinational corporate level. So it's full circle when it comes to understanding it. I think it complements a lot, being able to be in the both industries.
So aside from being able to, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to be able to balance, keeping a corporate career while also starting something on the side? So I already heard from you, training yourself to be able to handle multiple responsibilities, as much as possible, keep it within the same industry, which I think is kind of unique. Kasi like, normally, like if you're staying in the same industry, baka the corporate company would see you as sort of parang may conflict of interest, diba? Parang ganun. Like I can imagine if somebody works in a restaurant tapos gusto nila mag-start ng sariling restaurant. Or it might not go over as well. I guess in your case, it's more like as you said, since mas multinational, very like big level yung sa corporate, this is more like startups. Hindi siya like, walang masyadong overlap.
I think one of the nice things sometimes is, if one of our clients in Acceler8 starts with us at 4 or 5 people, then they go into a certain scale, then it's a nice transition to help them find a real office, a traditional office.
That's managed by Lichu.
But I think in terms of advice, really, I feel that there's just a lot of things that you need to know what's important to you, what you want to prioritize, and there's no right and wrong on which you feel you want to give more weight on, right? There was this other podcast that I was listening recently. If you know Ryan Holiday, right? So he was saying that he's better in it's not choosing whether to prioritize family or being married and his kids or his work or his writing, because if he's able to be good at his writing and he's able to advance career, he'll be a better husband or a better dad, right? Same goes with family. If he is not a better dad, then it will suffer. So it's not about choosing one or the other. I think it's just for them. At least I got to relate to a lot of that. That podcast specifically is that the people that you love, of course, will understand. If you're putting more time into let's say your career, and then you'll be a better person also. That you come out from it. I think. I don't know.
How about in terms of being like these past 4 years? We talk about some of the highs, but like winning this, being recognized by Lamudi in this award. What's the toughest adversity or challenge that you've had to deal with as an entrepreneur? I guess on the flip side, because we're in the business of short-term leasing, our tenancy, for as much as we of course want our clients to grow, the turnover also happens pretty fast. So if someone rents out for 6 months, if they end up doing really well, then they scale up their business at a certain point in time that we can no longer accommodate, or the other way around. Let's say they close business, because a lot of those that starting their business have very volatile. They need a longer runway than other companies. So it's the churn, having to backfill a lot of these tenants. You'll always be able. There's no, let's say, 5-year window where that their tenants already for 5 years and you're stable enough. Here you always actively looking for someone to come in and replace. So the pipeline has to really be
correct. And of course, different personalities, different tenants. It's not like again, where you have, let's say, one office floor and you're just talking to one tenant. Here we have office floor and we are talking to 100 tenants, which is sometimes it's nice. You get to meet 100 different tenants, but you have 100 people complaining if the internet bugs down, right?
Yeah. So how do you overcome that? How do you deal with challenges like that?
So at least when it comes to, let's say, operationally, so the people, at least the people on the ground are uh, equipped to know what to do when something happens. There's like already operational manuals that we've put together, so that whether it be that person on site or it's someone else, they have something to
So
refer
the
to.
system is in place for them to be able to handle, to put out these fires, so
Yeah,
to speak.
it wasn't there. I mean, it was really from the experience that we had. But I think also I know a lot of people that go into business with very good ideas, and they're able to execute, but ended up with, with partners that falling out with the not the right chemistry of people. And I'm very lucky that, one of my partners is a good friend from we were classmates in grade prep to grade 2. We're, very few people that are in the same, diba, gang,
Yeah.
or in the
From
same
growing up
same
to-
group,
yeah.
go into the business, because there's that risk of, losing that friendship. But we're able to withstand, whatever challenges we have. And I think what's helped was really be able to determine our roles very specifically. So I do more of, let's say, sales, ops. He does more of the finance background. So there may be things that I don't agree on, but I respect his decision, because
Yeah.
that's his turf. And and I think that's very important to have to determine that when you go into business with,
Right, from the
whether it be
start.
friends or whether it be partners, is to determine what his or her roles are. People over may overcommit to things, right? And I'm sure that a lot of us has experienced that. But again, I think I've been fortunate enough to people that have committed have really delivered, and they've been we've been very clear from the very beginning that, we want to make sure that we're aligned. And the respect is, I think, the something that, you have to build up, but once it's there, then it's good.
How about you as an entrepreneur? Do you ever experience self-doubt?
Every day, I think, yeah, definitely.
Like in what way, and how do you deal with it when?
I think you will always doubt your capability. You always doubt it. I don't think you'll come to a point where you're really sure.
Yeah.
But one thing that I've been doing recently is really finding time to really contemplate, finding 20 minutes, 30 minutes to detach myself and really just find some quiet time to really think about the day, think about the decisions you made. What are the lessons that I can take from today? What are the blessings that I want to be thankful for and grateful for? Because what I've noticed about myself and about other people is that, we're always doing something. I was in mass last Sunday, and I was a bit early, about 15 minutes, and people were just on their phones, or they couldn't. People are not used to being with themselves in their
And
thoughts
not doing anything
anymore.
Yeah.
So you always have to do something. The moment that you're not doing something,
You pull out your phone, you
yeah.
start scrolling.
And also, like, a lot of the businesses, or at least entrepreneurs we admire, is that, they look at movement as productivity. And I think I was also that was the belief I had from before, is that, you have to work yourself to exhaustion. You have to, every minute, every second counts, that you have to be doing something. You have to, if not, you're not progressing. So I was really making sure before, doing a few, since I'm doing a couple of things, is to, be very efficient in my time. And I had learned very recently, it's actually very important to spend about 30 minutes, 20 minutes, or even less in a day to just sit down and, contemplate and reassess, whether you're still, your goals are aligned, maybe your goals are changing, to break down how you've been making decisions, and really just, understand what's important to you, and how you wanna, and how you've been, how you wanna progress in whether it be that day or for the year or whatever. So I think that's very important that I found very important.
So this
to do
20
that,
to 30 minutes that you do, are you doing it through journaling, meditation?
I've tried a few things. So I've tried transcendental meditation, TM. So it's very. I think it helped a lot to distress. It gives you. It's not a practice where you actually get a lot of. It's not about meditating for you to get insight, but it's more meditating to, to really be to relax,
Correct.
to get out of a lot of the stress that you have that you're feeling. So I've been doing that. I've also been journaling, also as you've mentioned a few times. But I don't pressure myself. I mean, it doesn't mean if I don't journal today, I won't. I don't want to be obligated. That's a problem because it now becomes a race. Now it becomes something as something that you have to do again. You just do it naturally as it comes, but you also have to put a system in place for you to find the time. And I felt that the best time to do it is to be find maybe an hour before everything gets busy in the morning. So I try as much as possible to wake myself up at 5 a.m. I haven't. I wasn't successful this morning. I woke up a little later than that. But during the early part of the morning is where it's really quiet. You have zero distractions, and you can focus on a few things. Whether it be spending time to check on your health, to exercise, which I feel is a priority to get you to the right mindset. Second is that it's time for you to do other things apart from things that that you like doing, whether it be reading, whether it be enriching your mind by listening to podcasts, or find a time to journal or meditate or just be with your thoughts.
So when you do TM, where did you take the TM class?
In across Green Meadows.
The same place, K
Poly,
Poly.
with Poly.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you take it with him?
I took it
Still
last year
practicing?
also. On and off.
Yeah.
Do you do it twice a day?
I used to, but now I just do it once a day. It's been very difficult.
Parang at least
to
once a day
do the
is
second.
like, well, at least with how busy things can get, diba? Parang you really have to carve out that time. So
You have to carve, and I think you have to find what works for you. It's hard to force something that it's not really practical for you to incorporate in, especially if let's say the schedule that we have are very erratic. You don't know where you're gonna be in the afternoon. It's not easy to consistently meditate. So now you find something that that fits more of your lifestyle.
Nice. We'll talk more about that often.
Sige.
I have a lot of questions.
Okay. Pa rin.
How about
Poly.
who do you look up to in your field?
And the most obvious, I would say, of course, would be our mentor David Leach, who he's built his career as someone very reputable that people seek advice, and he can really, I'd say, predict, but he is able to really have a very good foresight of the real estate market. The tycoons, the big players ask him for his thoughts, advice when it comes to either building and either they build or they stop building. So anything real estate related, I think he's a very good role model, and I look up to him very much. I think when it comes to mentoring, it's not easy to find a mentor. Everyone wants to find one, but not everyone has the opportunity to find a mentor, a real mentor, meaning someone that you can talk to day to day. But what I found out, each and every mentors are not people that you see day to day or physical mentors. I mean, podcasts, books are very good mentors as well. I mean, imagine, let's say a book, someone writing a book will take 5 years of his life to just, soak up all that knowledge, put it in something digestible for a consumer to, it's just basically it's just in the tip of your fingers to grab. And these people are very experienced in their fields, and all we have to do is really dedicate time and effort to
read it,
pick up a book and read, and that's a mentor in its own. So I don't see that it's an excuse to not find a mentor, because now with technology, you have the opportunity to download videos, listen to podcasts. I mean, even listening to your podcast, the people that you've interviewed in the past are people that I look up to personally, and I think they're they're masters in their fields, and that's a very good lineup of entrepreneurs that you were able to tap.
So you mentioned books. Like, do you have any book recommendations,
Thank you.
or any book that's really made an impression on you?
Okay, that's tough. That's one thing that I feel also when reading books, no, we get into a race sometimes that you just want to move from one book to the next.
Yeah.
And
I get
what I
that,
try to
yeah.
practice now is really take time to understand not just what it's written, but how it relates to you. And sometimes you may need to put the book down because you're tired, you're
yeah.
drained, you're not in the
I get it, yeah.
mindset to absorb, and you have to have the discipline to be able to recognize that and take some time to rest. Before it was more of you wanted to one book to another. It's a race to read as many books as possible. So now it's more deliberate approach on when it gets into reading. So some authors that I like, I think I mentioned Ryan Holiday,
yeah.
which his mentor was Robert Greene.
Robert Greene, yeah.
So a guy that wrote 49 Laws of Power, and I like those books because it talks about history a lot. It's just about how things are before, but even history is a good indicator of what the present times are. A guy named Ray Dalio actually said that
Principles, yeah.
it's not about whatever is happening to you now has already happened before. Right? So it's about talking to the right people who have experienced it before, looking for those maybe searching online of experiences of other people, and you can easily pick their brains. So we're in times that it's actually an influx of information. But again, you can easily drown yourself with that information.
Agreed.
What's
yeah.
special is picking up relevant information, tying them together, and making sense of them, and how to use that information. Whether it be for your career, for yourself, to develop yourself better.
I think what you're saying is it's the blessing and the curse of this generation or this era. And everything is literally available. Like, I mean, as an entrepreneur, like even the difference between 2008 when I was starting until now, I can imagine if you're starting now, pretty much unless you're creating something totally out of this world, I don't know, if you're trying to build like a spaceship like si Elon Musk, there's only a few people you can really relate to though. But other than that, any other business you want to get into, there's like thousands of people who have done it, and hundreds of them are writing books about it. They're sharing what they're doing on social media. Like there's this guy I'm following on social media now. He's in real estate. Like I'm not in real estate, but just follow him because he's very inspirational. He talks about, and he's a family guy. So even just seeing how he does his business, like how he starts his day, when he does coaching calls with his team, he shares it online. It's a story. So like even being able to pick up, sort of insights here and there, it's readily available. And like you said, Kena, it's also a curse because you can drown in the information. Diba? Sometimes you feel I think some people get stuck with the hoarding the information.
Correct.
And then hindi na napaprocess kasi nga you're trying to, okay, after I read this book, after I watch this documentary or this movie or this something, what's next? Kasi ang dami nakapila, diba? Like, it's a issue with Netflix, diba? Na people are just adding,
binge watching.
Or they're just adding, they keep adding to their list, but they're not really watching enough, parang ganun. So, when you mentioned book like sa Ryan Holiday, have you read his latest book, Stillness is the Key?
It's sold out.
Sold out now.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about getting it on as an audiobook na lang eh.
Yeah.
Like how many books do you read in a year?
I think maybe at least one book a month.
Yeah.
So last year maybe about 12 to 15. So what I do every year is after end of the year I take a picture of the books I've read.
Yeah.
More of to remind me of why I'm reading them, and second is also to inspire more people to actually pick up a book and read. That even how busy you are, you can always find time to enrich your mind and pick and and learn from a lot of these great authors or entrepreneurs that have actually written books.
Out of all the entrepreneurs that you're following or you're idolizing anywhere in the world, if you had a chance to have a one-on-one session with anyone of them, who would you choose?
I think Elon would be a good person to speak to, because I don't know, like for before when I was trying to understand, what's possible, he just defies what's possible and the impossible, right? And how can he be so successful with different companies that he's very active on and that are changing the world as we speak, whether it be Tesla,
Yeah.
with cars, whether it be his
SpaceX, yeah.
and other few ventures that he's been with. I think it's nice to be able to unravel his mindset on how fixated and how motivated and how driven he is to really just bring people to Mars and to just create this new opportunity for humankind to live in. I think that he would be one of those guys, that would be nice to have coffee with. If you know him, please connect us together. But another piece of advice that I thought of that has always, I think I try to practice, just to bring it up, is how it's very difficult to actually be honest with yourself, because we put a lot of layers in the way we think, but to be really just honest with yourself and say, I'm having a hard time, why am I having a hard time, and to question that and just onion peel that entire process, I think it's been very helpful. So that's something that I try to do as much as possible, is to unravel why I'm feeling certain things. It's much deeper than what's in the surface, And then, if I think that's one another piece of advice that I'd want to share as well.
Nice. We're heading towards the latter part of the show now. There are 3 questions that I always ask. Actually, this first question would be sort of related to what you just said.
Sige.
So, knowing what you know now, diba? If you went back in time to the day that you decided to start Acceler8,
Yeah.
so this was about, I guess, a little over 4 years ago,
yeah.
diba? And then let's say you had a time machine. Elon Musk made a time machine, and then you traveled back in time to that to that point in time when you said, "Okay, I'm gonna start Acceler8."
Yeah.
And you had, let's say, just a short amount of time, maybe 60 seconds, to give advice to Mikko from 4 years ago. What would you say to yourself?
It's hard. I mean, I don't really look at things where I really regret doing whatever. I mean, whatever crossroads or anything that has happened in the past 4 or 5 years, whether it be personally, whether it be career, family, I believe has helped me just grow as a person. And I wouldn't really change anything. I wouldn't give him the opportunity to
change what's happened.
Yeah, it's just how it's just living, really. I mean, but again, it has to be very deliberate in terms of let's say, especially failures. If you make a bad decision, you have to have the humility to admit that you made a wrong decision. You have to understand why you made that decision at that point in time. Was I emotional? Maybe I felt that I should have actually responded, maybe took a nap, then responded after.
Yeah.
But once you break that down, the insight that you get from it is really special, and it's something that you now have something new, but it's always been there. It just needs to take the process to understand and find out the root of it, and that's how you grow, I think. And it's really that something that I try to practice as often as I can.
So is it more of just reassuring yourself back then you're on the right path? So
maybe, yeah. I don't know, I guess. But yeah, I wouldn't really change anything from it. I'd rather just, have him, my younger self, experience whatever he has coming.
Okay, so the second to the last question would be, what else are you looking to accomplish over the next 10 years?
Wow. I want to be able to at least, I guess, more on a real estate point of view, but more of build a portfolio. I guess be able to invest more in real estate. Like they say, there's no right or wrong time to buy real estate, right? Your time will always correct your mistakes. So even people say that it's a market that's now exploding, it's so expensive. But if you just look at how when we were doing, we were finding use space for back then. The rates, at least on just leasing, right, in Bonifacio for retail spaces was at 1,200, 1,300 about 4 or 5 years ago, and now it's at 4,000 pesos per square meter, and it's expensive. Maybe not a lot can afford it anymore.
The spaces you sent me last week, I was like, what is going on?
But that's just a clear example that it's Philippines, at least our market, where we have the fundamentals, and I think people are really trying to make the Philippines one of the top countries in Asia. If you just look at the SEA Games, we're really proud of how we are as a nation, and we want to see ourselves succeed. And being able to invest in real estate as early as today and sit on it, and maybe I think there's a lot of opportunity there that anyone can grab, for that matter. So that's maybe one. And I think I want to be able to just build more skill sets. Some would say like build your strengths, and that type. Other people your weaknesses, just delegate it, and strengths finder and all that. But I think I want to be able to, at least at the bare minimum, be able to comprehend and understand other industries as well. Because if you're also very enclosed in just knowing real estate, it's you're just a one-trick pony. But if you have a wider understanding of all different industries, whether it be telco, whether it be restaurants, whether it be other business lines, you're now also, whatever you bring to the table on the real estate play has more weight.
More nuance to it. Correct. Okay, before I ask the final question, where can people follow you? Where can people follow Acceler8?
Yeah, we have a Facebook and Instagram, Acceler8 PH. Then I just have a IG as well. It's Mikko Barranda. So, or you can call my mobile 09. There's some hoardings. There's some real estate hoardings that you may see from EDSA or from.
Okay, final question. How do you, Mikko Barranda, how do you want to be remembered?
On a branding perspective, I really want to be remembered in someone that has someone that's involved and been able to influence real estate, whether it be office, whether it be leasing, whether it be sales, whether it be any type of facet. But I think that's a positioning that I've really put myself into, and I want to be remembered, at least on a professional career level, that if you talk to Mikko, he can at least guide you. He can advise you on the right, give you the best decisions that you can make based on what the market is saying, what the market is telling us. That's one. And of course, you always want to be known as someone that's kind, someone that that's easy to speak to, very approachable, and that those are things that I think is very important also, to not like someone like Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
No. In a good way.
Yeah. Well, I think you're definitely on that path. As you mentioned, somebody who's very, very knowledgeable and successful in real estate, but also very kind and approachable.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed
Thank you.
being friends with you and over the past 7 years. and looking forward to seeing what's next.
All right.
So, thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you very
Mikko.
much also. Sama-sama.
Thank you guys for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review the show on iTunes. It will help more people discover the show. You can also share a screen cap of the show on your social media accounts. Make sure to tag me and let me know which part of the episode you like or didn't like. All feedback is certainly welcome, so feel free to reach out to me on Instagram @KendrickPo to let me know what topics you'd like to be covered next and who you want to hear or learn from in future episodes. Until next time, do the work you want to see done, because life's too short to not be creating your life's work.